Welcome to the Nehemiah Entrepreneurship Community Podcast. I'm your host, Patrice Tsague, and I'm here with Pastor Anthony Moore of Carolina Missionary Baptist Church in Fort Washington, Maryland. And we've invited Pastor Moore as part of our podcast series on our response to the George Floyd incidents. As you all know, for the last several days, we've been having a series of podcasts discussing this situation and providing both our response and hearing from various leaders about their take on it, and to provide our constituents and those who follow Nehemiah in the U.S. and around the world some insights and take around the situation with the goal to provide some kind of direction, support, and clarity as people deal with what's going on. And so we invited Pastor Moore as one of the many pastors to be talking with to give us a kind of a spiritual insight or guidance, as many of us have questions, both concerning social and spiritual. So Pastor will be dealing with a social and spiritual concern as his take. Pastor Moore, at one point, was the chairman of the Nehemiah Project Board of Directors. He helped us to go nationally and expand internationally. He ministers to both African Americans and non-African Americans around the country. He's an author of the book One More Minute that you can purchase if you like to. It's a devotional book that's available on Amazon as well as on his website, onemoreminute.com. Pastor Moore is known for both clarity in his articulation as well as passion for the issues concerning both social and particularly African Americans or those who are down and out. He has a unique burden for the those who are not part of the mainstream, whether it's African Americans, whether it's single women, whether it's the elderly. His entire ministry is around the disadvantaged in general. But what we like about Pastor Moore, he has an articulation that helps to bring clarity on a number of matters like this across the board. So Pastor Moore, first of all, welcome to our podcast, and thank you, sir, for being available at the last minute to us.
It's my pleasure, Patrice. Thank you for inviting me to come and to lend my narrative to what, in fact, is happening in our world.
Well, Pastor Moore, the nation is shocked, the world, as a matter of fact, as to what's happened, and not just what happened, but also how much is exploded around the country. You had a chance to read our response in terms of what Nehemiah communicated out. First, what's your thought on our particular response in terms of what we put out?
Patrice, I think the response is a good start. It's where we ought to start. For those who know me, however, know that I want to see the job all the way through. And so though Nehemiah has a great start, I think that starting the urban initiative is great. I think focusing on reconciliation between people and people of color, with people of color and with persons who are in high positions is great. The problem that I have is that the political problem in our country, though, doesn't get an opportunity to be addressed. It doesn't give us an opportunity to respond to addressing the political climate that has brought us to the place of where we are. So it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a cancerous sore. It's a great start. I believe reconciliation is important. I believe starting the Urban Initiative Entrepreneurs Program is important. But what I also see is an opportunity for Nehemiah, who has the ear of the conservative evangelicals, to begin to address those conservative issues that are there that nobody wants to talk to or talk about, race relations. I think that we ought to use our platform, and I think Nehemiah has a great platform, and it has the ear to a number of individuals. And I just believe that if Nehemiah could go even further beyond what they're doing, I want to see the urban initiative revamped, restarted in our communities. But what I also want to see is there being some policy reformation being done, and that Nehemiah is utilizing its platform, its leverage to engage conversation with individuals whom you already have the ear to, and really deal with some tough issues like race relations and the reforming of policing and the other areas that need to be reformed. I think that that would be tremendous.
Excellent, good point. Let's talk about it. First of all, for those who just joined us, who may not know what we're talking about, let me kind of set the stage here, and then we're going to get into what Pastor Moore is talking about. On May 25th, 2020, an African-American man named George Floyd died in the neighborhood south downtown Minneapolis, in Minnesota. And this man had been handcuffed, lying down in the streets. A white police officer kept his knee on the right side of Floyd's neck for about 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And according to reports, this is what led to his death. The arrest was made of the police officer. I'm sorry, the incident occurred due to a $20 bill counterfeit. So that what caused the situation. So with $20, this man was killed essentially. And according to police report, Floyd resisted arrest, and that's what kind of led to this whole situation. The officer was charged with third-degree murder. It's been changed recently to second-degree murder, from what we understand. The incident did spark a series of protests from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States. Riots and looting also have happened. And Pastor, I don't know about you, but I don't remember this kind of national incident since the Rodney King incident. I'm not sure if something has happened in terms of reaction since then. I'm not sure if there's anything has happened that has created this kind of national reaction since Rodney King.
I think you're right. I think it's been, for the most part, Rodney King was probably the last one that we had that was so national. But it's a boiling point at this point. Yes.
Well, let's talk about it. So, Pastor, because you represent the hurt and broken in the African community. I mean, you serve that community, and what I appreciate about you and your ministry, though God has blessed you to speak to broader communities, but you've been able to maintain the pulse of that community. So when you talk about we got to do more, and the need for reform and the political situation, break it down for us, because some folks may not really understand exactly what that means. Exactly. Sure. Could you kind of explain that further?
Yeah. So I think that just so you know, the ministry reach that I have is not necessarily bound to color. So it's not just Black and brown persons, but it is persons who are viewed as the disadvantaged, those who are the downtrodden, the broken. If they are the underdog, then they fit under the umbrella in which God has called me to minister to. So I kind of wanted to make that clear as I go through this. When we start talking about what are some of the options that we have available to us, I think it's very important for us to recognize that one, our system is not working like it was constructed to work. So The preamble of the Constitution, our preamble of rights. When we look at the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, I mean, we're talking about one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One nation under God. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God. I just think that we have to be mindful that what the bag of goods that we're selling in terms of us being the United States of America, it's not really truth. We are still basing life in America on skin color. And race relations is an issue that we really don't want to talk about. And yet it is being produced at such an alarming rate with rhetoric that's coming forth politically throughout. And so when I think about what is happening, immediately I say that one of the things that we need to do is to stop the rhetoric. We need to recognize that there is a problem. We need to begin to implement policies that will help to correct the problem. So when you start talking to me about reformational reforming, I really believe that our policing needs to be reformed. How police are reformed, I think needs to be reformed, how they're handling their business. I think that our judicial system needs to be reformed. Not only are police utilizing unnecessary force to bring persons down, when we look at the facts and the data, it is clear to me that somehow or another, Black and brown people's, their lives are disposable. I mean, it's just, it doesn't matter, you know, kill them, shoot them by any means necessary. When clearly we see, however, when it comes to other persons of color, and I'm speaking of white Americans, that you can have committed the worst of crimes and still be taken in without incident. And I can't understand for the life of me why that can happen for one group of people and not for another group. So when you start talking about reformation, I think policing needs to be something that needs to be dealt with. I think we need to, judicial system, how our people of color are being sentenced in jail. I read an article, Patrice, that was quite disturbing to me, how a man got life for stealing $9. $9. And then you tell me that that's fair. In this America, in these United States, there's something wrong with the system and how we are handling it. When I look at the fact that jails are now privatized and that they are getting money now for the number of persons in the jails, there's profit in jailing now, profits in jailing. So then we are putting people in jail, gaining profit, doing prison labor that's producing more money for those who have invested in building prisons. There's something wrong with our judicial system. When we read in the papers how there is scores of units in the South in our policing areas, municipalities, that have 1,000 cases that they're yet working on because they discovered that the evidence that's been submitted was absolutely planted, and it happened to have been on people of color. What really disturbs me more than anything is that I have my white brothers and sisters who stand by, see the injustice, and will not speak out about it. That to me is an atrocity. It's just absolutely egregious that you can say that you are men and women of God, see the injustice that's going forth, and we not say or do anything about it. So the judicial system needs to be reformed. I think our elected officials, we need to hold our leaders accountable. The people that we put in office, we need to hold them accountable for how the legislation and the laws are being stacked. When I look at gentrification, when I look at redlining within our communities, when I look at our public school systems, it is clear to me when I look at mortgage loans and how we can have a long depository relationship with the bank and never miss a payment, and yet we go in and we can't get home equity loans because of where our home is located. It's amazing to me that where I live in Prince George's County, and yet right next door to me, right next door is Washington, D.C. In Prince George's County, where there is a great contingent of African Americans, the property value goes down, that homeowners are upside down in their homes. But right next door in Washington, D.C., where gentrification is going forth, literally the prices of those homes are skyrocketing. So I ask you, Patrice, tell me, who implements the system? Where does this come from? And at what point do we hold people accountable for being unfair? There has to be a sense of equality within our country. And I say to you all that unless we begin to address these issues, that we're going to have more of what we're seeing, unfortunately, because rather than us speaking truth to power and dealing with the issues head on, we would rather give a lecture and tell people stuff like, hey, we will enforce military law if you all keep it up. Well, listen, what we need is not that kind of response. What we need is for someone to say, we're going to make sure that the policies and the kind of policing that would get a George Floyd killed in broad daylight, in public, that we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. Rather, you would rather say to us and to people on the streets and to our young people that if you don't act right, we're going to institute martial law. Well, now that to me doesn't make sense. I'll pause here and answer any other questions you may have.
Pastor Moore, thank you so much. So, Pastor Moore, you seem to suggest that things have gotten worse, or are you suggesting that they've not even gotten better?
Sir, I am not suggesting at all. I think that what we have is freedom, but there is no equality. Freedom, but no equality. There's inequity all through the system. You name the system, and I'll identify you the inequity within it. That's the problem, sir. Mm-hmm. And yet, under the preamble, under our Constitution, we talk about how these rights are extended to everybody. There's something wrong with that. I want to also say something else to you, Patrice. What we're seeing, in my estimation, by the way, is the greatest demise of the greatest democracy that has ever been on the planet Earth. If people of conscience and morals do not defend the soul of democracy, then I already know they're not going to defend the souls of people of color. We pride ourselves, Patrice, hear me, Nehemiah, we pride ourselves on being a country of democracy. For real? Right about now, what we're seeing is a dictatorship, not a democracy. When you look at a Muslim ban, family separation, an attempt to weaponize the senses, the silencing voters of color. When you look at the words of hate that comes forth from politicians, you can't help but see that somewhere along the line, there is a movement afloat that does not coincide with democracy. And we're watching it being dismantled piece by piece. The last time I checked, this was America. You had a right to an opinion. So that's my take on that, Patrice. I'm sorry.
That's more. No, it seems as though you're also suggesting, in a sense, that the Trump administration or the Trump presidency has created an environment that undermines democracy, which in turn has also made matters worse. Would that be true from your perspective?
Absolutely, sir. Yes.
So what about those Christians who then feel that that he stands for those causes and has pushed legislation that support Christianity? So could you balance the two? In other words, and I like what you said, about speaking truth to power. So you're suggesting, I'm going to restate it to you and see if you can clarify to me. You're suggesting that those of us who are in position of influence within policymakers, that specific issue we ought to address and speak to. What do you think about those who are supporting the Trump administration, as an example, and who are doing so because they feel that his administration is also standing for a number of things that are good for religious liberties or even Christianity?
So, Patrice, let me give you, when you start talking about liberties and those things that the president, that the president is pushing. I'm going to just be very blunt and put it out here. There are two issues that we will, in fact, meaning Christians and even our white evangelical brothers and sisters, will push to the max: abortion, homosexuality. For the record, I want to be real clear. I do not support neither. I don't support, I'm not a supporter of abortions. I'm not a supporter of homosexuality, especially same-sex marriage. I want to be real clear on that. To fight for my rights, Patrice, as an unborn, and then bring me here and take away my rights, you know what that makes you? A hypocrite. No, you didn't hear me, but I'll say it again for you. To fight for my rights to get here as an unborn, and then get me here, and then take away my rights, refuse to give me opportunity, it's just as bad. It makes you a hypocrite. And that alone, I'm saying, hey, can we balance this out? So when I look at my white brothers and sisters who say that we're serving the same God, but yet you find it necessary not to respond to injustice that's being done in America, is absolutely a slap in the face to the call, not to mention to God. That's where I'm having a problem. Yes, I think that they could be doing more. Yes, I think that they could influence policies, laws, legislation. Yes, I believe that we ought to be able to cry out. So let me just say this. Hillsong, who says very candidly, as one of our Christian leaders says, this has nothing to do with what I do. That is absolutely incorrect. This has everything to do with every preacher who is called under the banner of the gospel. Jesus says, I come to preach the gospel to the poor, to the downtrodden, to those who are outside. And you don't believe that you have the right to speak to injustice in America or in the world, period? I'm having a hard time with that.
Pastor Mo, so you're talking about the systematic injustices in the system, political, judicial, even police, that has to be addressed. Let's talk a bit about how some have taken to looting and rioting. One of the concerns is that it is just and right to march, particularly if the belief is that the system is unjust and imbalanced. And so the marching is either to make sure that the punishment that is due the police officers is right. But more important than that, you're also suggesting that there's also a reform that needs to occur. Could you speak though to the rioting and the looting and how we ought to process that, given that turns some people off who may want to support what you just said?
Yeah. So let's work through this for a moment. Now, I do want you all to know that the Bible is true. Whatsoever a man soweth, come on, you Bible scholars, that shall they also reap. That's Bible. Policies of violence begets acts of violence. Words of hate begets acts of hate. Now, two wrongs don't make a right, Patrice. Please hear me. Two wrongs don't make a right. So let me just say on the outset of this, of my presentation, that, hey, I do not support rioting. I do not support violence, and I do not support looting. I am for protest that does not involve violence, looting, destruction of property. I don't support that. I have used my voice in my pulpit to say to people of color and to white brothers and sisters, this is not the way to do it. Now, I do want to be real clear that when you look at the tapes, Patrice, of rioters and looters, I want you all to put the blame where it rightfully needs to be. Because when we look at the tapes, these are not predominantly Black individuals or people of color who are doing it. But there is a collaboration of races that are doing this. Now, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said this, in the final analysis, what he said, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? That the plight of the Negro poor has worsened. It has failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. As long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these reoccurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention. So if we want to address the ill, then let's treat it completely. You don't get rid of the infection by just putting a Band-Aid over it. It requires surgery. It requires a procedure being done. And it's only after the procedure, whether it's a surgical procedure or whatever, it's only after that that healing can start. But you got to first get rid of the infection. You got to first get rid of the illness, the sickness, the disease that makes it become what it is. Then we can, in fact, start talking about how we heal. So when it comes to rioting, understand that there is a portion of this that we are responsible for. Because either through your silence or through your words, you have contributed to this process.
So we are all, in a sense, have to do something for doing nothing, that in itself feeds into the situation.
I think that, Patrice, not only do we have to do something, but let's take ownership for this. Let's take ownership. So nobody wants us to accept ownership. No one wants to accept discussion. No one wants to have conversation. But we've got to take ownership. Hey, this is what it is. This is what, let's call it what it is. This is what America is. And unfortunately, until we begin to address this with a comprehensive approach, we're going to forever be having these reoccurrences of riots where there's looting and destruction.
Pastor Mo, let's speak to various groups, and I'm going to mention a group, and I want you to give some advice from your perspective in terms of how they should be processing right now, or even how they should handle things. Well, let's start, of course, the victim of the family. There's a family that have lost a loved one. George Floyd is dead, and that's I think his a mother, a father, a brother, an uncle, somebody, a family lost somebody. Could you speak to them for a minute? What would you say to them?
I say to them, Patrice, that my heart goes out to them. I grieve with them. George Floyd's 6-year-old daughter, whose father is no longer here, to his siblings. I'm almost sure that if George Floyd was here, that he would not want any of this that's going on now. Wasn't the kind of person that he was. So I think very candidly that I would say to his family, I'm so sorry that we could not have dealt with this before having to lose your family member, that we were not savvy enough, had enough courage to deal with this before now. That's what I would say to them.
So let's speak to the police officers. What would you say to them? Those whose George Floyd died while either had their knee on his neck or while they watched.
So let me tell you that first, let me just say that I don't believe that all police are bad. I do not. I also believe that even those police officers who inflicted this pain deserve mercy and grace. I believe that. In addition to forgiveness, I believe it with all my heart. that they deserve mercy, grace, and forgiveness. I would want, sir,
go ahead. No,
I would want there to be conversation to help us understand, how could this happen? Why did it happen? Now, and please don't misunderstand mercy and grace and forgiveness. I'm still suggesting that there are consequences for our actions that need to be, in fact, paid for. But I can't hate those guys. I can't hate them.
Pastor, let's talk to government. You talked about the need for reform. Those who are listening, who either are in government positions or have influence to our leaders in government, what would you say to them? You said a lot of things earlier, but what would you say to them as far as what advice and what counsel would you say to them?
So I would give to our politicians this idea and this thought that the beauty of our democracy is that everybody has a vote and a voice. That's the beauty of our democracy. That everyone has a vote and a voice, and our politicians need to protect that. That's the first thing. I think that our politicians need to demand reform within our policing. Number three, I think that we need reform within our judicial system. Number four, that there needs to be laws and legislation that is fair across the board. I think that there needs to be laws and regulations with gun safety laws. I think that we need to strengthen hate crime laws, and that we need to be certain to protect the courts, federal court judges that are being placed in positions are hostile to civil rights bills and laws that are coming forth. That's not how we want to stack our court system. That's my advice to politicians, and they ought to be accountable. And if they're not, Patrice, they ought to be voted out. That's my advice to them.
To speak to the marchers, you did share your announcement of the riots and of the looting, but what would you say to marchers, people who feel compelled to do something at this time? They feel that they need to march for whatever reason, and what would you say to them?
I would say to those who are marching, I feel your pain. I sense your frustration. But what I would like to see us do is to channel our energy so that we are utilizing it to further the movement and not destroying our communities. That's what I would say to them.
And Pastor, what would you say to African Americans? Let's speak to two groups. There's a group of African Americans who feel the pain that you shared. They feel that there's clearly these injustices. They do feel that though they have freedom, there's no equity. What would you say to them?
I'm speaking to who again? Which group? I'm sorry.
The African Americans who feel, as you stated earlier, that there is freedom, as you stated, but there's no equity. They don't feel that they have the opportunities, or they feel that the system is set against them. What would you say to them?
I would say to them that the way to change the system is not through our silence of not voting. I would say to them that the way to change the system is not through violence. It is not through sitting back, doing absolutely nothing. But the way to change the system is to start within our own community, which involves every one of them to put their hands to the wheel to make it happen. It's got to be collective, not just some of us, but all of us. And not to get weary in well-doing. Because though the last words of George Floyd was, "I can't breathe," I believe that we will breathe again. I believe that we're going to breathe again. I believe that with all my heart. That's what I would say to them.
I do want to welcome BB Ford and Shirley Levon. Thank you for watching. Those of you who are watching, thank you so much. Share your comments if you can as we come to wrap here. Pastor Moore, what about the group of African Americans who feel that the system is better and they themselves have even experienced much progress? What do you say to them? And some of those who may have even voted for President Trump and feel that that what he's done for some of the policy has been good for Christianity or even for the country. Could you speak to that group? Because they may not see things as the other group does. What do you say to them?
Well, Patrice, you know what, in all honesty, everybody has a right to their own opinion. The problem that I have is when your opinion is the only opinion that has to be respected. That's my problem. See, I really don't, my advice to anyone is to exercise your right to vote, to use your voice. It is not my responsibility to tell you who to vote for. That's your decision. That's what makes us a democracy. But what I will say to individuals is simply this. Yo, look at the data. Check the records. I don't know how anybody, including Stevie Wonder, could say that they see our United States of America being better. No. Absolutely not. When you've got an Ahmaud Arbery who is jogging through a neighborhood and is literally lynched in broad daylight on the basis of suspicion, and you tell me that this is better? Oh, no. I'm sorry. You say to me it's better when police officers can literally kill you, hold you down in broad daylight, and then have it so that the autopsy report says that there was a heart condition, not asphyxiation. This George Floyd situation in their minds was a sealed deal. It wasn't supposed to come up. It had already been decided. It was only because a video came out and showed us something different. But the coroner's report, the medical examiner's report, said that he died from a heart condition. For real, Patrice? I mean, this thing had already been sealed. Reports filed, nobody was being investigated for anything. And now all of a sudden, because video came out, truth starts surfacing. Now, let me just ask you, how many others have there been where there was no video? How many others are sitting in jail even now on trumped up charges? How many others have been killed and was filed away as a regular police shooting that was never investigated? I'm saying, Patrice, there's something wrong here. I mean, all the way down from the medical examiner to the police, to the judges, to the captains, the chief, you name it, we have a major problem. And we've got to clear up the infection that is running through the veins of America.
Pastor, let's speak to white America. One of the things you made earlier, as you talked about by the way, BB Ford said, I believe we'll breathe again, Pastor Moore.
Yes.
You mentioned the fact that your white brothers and sisters who you feel may be doing nothing or saying nothing about the injustices. So I want to speak to two groups. The first group are those who may be that group who may feel like, Pastor Moore, I want to do something, don't know what to do, don't completely agree. And even those who are supporters of Donald Trump. What do you say to them? But they want to do something. They want to be a part of this process. What advice would you give them?
First of all, I would tell them it's their choice to support Donald Trump. That's their choice. I support you having the right to choose. What I don't support, however, is that when you side with wrong. So when Donald Trump is wrong, he needs to be called in and held accountable for it. The comments that he makes, his behavior, the rhetoric, the lies. We can't be God's children in white America and say, okay, we're going to give him a pass. Oh, no. He needs to be held accountable. So that's the first group. You have a right to support whom you like. I'm not fighting you about that. What I'm fighting you about is when an individual is wrong, we have to correct him. Unless you believe that what he says, does, and the policies he implements are right, then that says to me that that's where you are. And don't be a coward. Did you just hear what I said? I said, don't be a coward. Acknowledge where you are and then stand back and accept the repercussions for that. But don't be a coward and hide behind this man. The second group, those who in fact, who say nothing, is that the second group you said who says nothing?
Yeah, well, let me go to the second. So that's the one group. The second group, there are many who are very, as you are, passionate, and who are even in agreement with you. But there's a sense from some whites who feel as though that whites are being painted with a wide brush, right? And they feel as though if they don't agree with everything, if they agree with, if they have to either all or nothing, and there's not acknowledgement or even recognition of some of what they've done or what progress have been made. Could you speak to that group and who really want to think and do right and be involved, but they say, what do I do? I can't win here, Pastor Moore.
Yeah. So let me be the first to say to you all that I don't believe that all white people are bad. I don't believe that. There are some good white brothers and sisters who in fact sense what's going on and what needs to be done. For the group that you just mentioned, what makes America America is democracy. You don't have to agree with me. Listen, because we disagree doesn't make us or should make us disagreeable. What I say to my white brothers and sisters is I want you all to sense our frustration for a moment. So I have three children. Of my three children, two are African-American males. My oldest boy is 33 years of age. My youngest is 25. 25. The conversation that I have with my two sons and the fear that their mom and I live under is unlike anything any white brother or sister will ever go through with their own child. It is absolutely scary as a pastor with two sons who in fact are law-abiding citizens. If they get stopped by the police, there are different rules that apply to them because of their color. And sir, my wallet is in my back pocket. May I reach for my wallet? The rules are different. And until my white brothers and sisters can sit down and feel our pain, sense our fear, understand our frustration of what we in fact have to endure, we don't get a chance to even think about justice. Because to us, it's stacked against us. We don't have the monies to, in fact, get the necessary representation that we need. And then we go into courts being unprepared. Therefore, the book is thrown. Or the person who perpetrated the crime walks away. And I'm sorry. But I'm not trying to suggest in any way that that second group cannot get a break. For 400 years, we've been trying to get a break, and we've been unsuccessful. And I say to them, welcome to what it feels like. You cannot give up. I need you to literally speak out about your values and what you believe, whether I agree or not. The good thing that makes America America is supposed to be is democracy. We're supposed to be a melting pot. So that's my thought, Patrice.
Wow. Well, Pastor Moore, thank you so much. You know, we're going to have Pastor Moore say one last comment, but I just want to thank those who are listening. The purpose of these podcasts is to provide a forum for dialogue, to hear different perspectives, so that we can make informed decisions that's non-political. We are going to have some people with a political bent on the podcast for the next several weeks, but that's because we do want to hear different sides, so that those of us who are people of goodwill as we process this, we can process it having heard not from commercial politicians who are pushing an agenda, but rather from real people with real emotion and feeling who are sharing how they're processing thinking, so that together as a community, we can make some sound decision. Pastor Moore, last question, is there any hope? If not, why not? If it is, where do we go from here?
Listen, sir, as a preacher of the gospel, I believe that there is hope. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ, the solid rock, I stand. When my members of our congregation and people of our community call and say, hey, Pastor, can you help me, please? What I say to them is very candid. You cannot put your trust in man. You have to trust God. I believe that there is hope, and that hope is in our relationship to the Lord Jesus Christ. Patrice, I want to apologize to those on the call. I've been suffering with allergies, and the last 2 days have been crazy. And so my coughing and I have a post-nasal drip, and it's just really bothering me. So you all please forgive me, but I did not want to not share with you all today my heart and my passion about what I see in America and what needs to happen. And more than anything else, we cannot lose our democracy. That's what makes us so different than any other country in the world, is our ability to be able to choose. And we have some rights. Thank you so much for having me on today, Patrice.
Thank you so much. If you want more information about Pastor Moore, what is your church website again?
Yeah, it's carolinachurch.org, carolinachurch.org. And there you'll be able to find me and all of my teachings and things I've done, even here of late. The sermon that I preached on this past Sunday is entitled, I Can't Breathe. I Can't Breathe. I Cannot Breathe. And so I utilize that to help give some healing and some hope to my people. By the way, Patrice, today marks the second year of One More Minute Devotional.
Wow.
And so I'm really grateful for Nehemiah for giving me the opportunity to put that devotion, that devotion in place through a One More Minute devotional book. And those 40 devotionals, I pray, will speak life to individuals with a sense of equity without there being any kind of biases whatsoever. So thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you. Happy anniversary. And if you want more information about that book, you can get it from the Pastor Moore's website. Or he has another website called onemoment.com, where you can get the book. I could get it as an ebook, audiobook, or physical book. Pastor Moore, despite your state, thank you for being here and pressing through for us. Listen, why do we do this? Because we want to create dialogue. Nehemiah, as Pastor Moore shares, a unique place. We have the privilege of having you all who are both supporters, entrepreneurs, clients, members from different spectrum. And we want to make sure that we bring the information from various sources, from various people, so you can hear the hearts and the pain, the joys and the cries, so that you can make your own decision and not rely upon just the news because of their biased viewpoint. The other thing is, as an entrepreneur, all this affects all of us, because if our nation is unstable socially and spiritually, then it will also impact the economics. And so it's important for us to be educated and relevant. And as kingdom business people, we are called to build businesses that has the quadruple bottom line: people, planet, profit, eternity. And this, therefore, is relevant. So if you want to join this community where we transform the world together, you can visit our website at nehemiahecommunity.com, And together we can transform the world. There you can learn how we can come alongside you, provide training, coaching, and access to capital in helping you build that kingdom company. With that said, we'll be back tomorrow with another guest as we continue the discussion series around our response to the George Floyd situation. Here's what I want to leave you with. May the Lord bless you, and may the Lord enable you to use the talents He's placed under your care in such a way that one day you can hear those wonderful words, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. God will now make you ruler over much. God bless you." Thank you, Facebook friends and podcast friend. Pastor Moore, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
God bless. Feel better.
God bless you. Thank you so much, sir.